You're sitting on your couch, doom scrolling, when every phone in the neighborhood starts screaming at once. Sirens outside, amber bar across the TV, the kind of emergency alert they swore they'd probably never have to use. Highways clog in minutes, gas stations overflow, and everyone you know does exactly what every movie and government pamphlet trained them to do. They grab a bag, hit the main roads, and herd themselves into the same obvious kill zones. But let me ask you something brutal. When millions of scared, hungry, panicked people all run in the same direction, what makes you think that's where survival lives? I'm going to tell you what I know with absolute certainty. 99% of people will flee toward visibility, comfort, and authority. The tiny sliver who actually make it through the first few weeks, they move in the opposite direction, toward quiet, overlooked, uncomfortable strongholds that look like nothing until everyone else is gone. Today, I'm going to show you 7 of those stronghold spots, locations that turn into sanctuaries precisely because everyone else flees past them without a second look. Not mountain cabins, not secret bunkers, not fantasy nonsense. Real structures built into your town right now. Forget Hollywood. Forget the grab your bug out bag and head to the woods fantasy. Woods don't have reinforced doors, industrial kitchens, or gravity-fed water systems. Buildings do. While they're sprinting into chaos, you're ghosting sideways into infrastructure. Before we dive into the 7, here's your first choice of the day. You can stay in the emotional comfort zone with the herd, or you can become part of the uncomfortable minority that actually plans. If you want to be in the single-digit % who already have their sanctuaries picked before things go sideways, hit subscribe, drop a comment with your city type, urban, suburban, or rural, and we'll get tactical. Stronghold number 1, evacuated schools and edge-of-town campuses. Sounds insane, right? Empty lockers and creepy hallways instead of a FEMA shelter. But run the numbers. Reinforced construction, multiple exits, kitchens, water access, and huge indoor spaces already built for hundreds of humans. Let me paint you the moment. Buses are gone, parents have either followed evacuation routes or stayed home to guard their stuff, and that big concrete block on the edge of town is dead silent. The only thing left is a flagged-out American flag and a building designed to keep kids alive during lockdown drills. From a tactical standpoint, schools are gold. Thick masonry or reinforced concrete, interior rooms with no windows, gymnasiums with high ceilings for air volume, and kitchens designed to feed hundreds. One good cafeteria walk-in can stash supplies where nobody thinks to look. Here's how this works for you. You're not squatting in the front office where every desperate straggler will bang first. You're setting up in an interior classroom with limited sightlines from outside, using corridors as layered approach paths. One door in, one emergency exit as fallback. Attack surface controlled, visibility high. Your advantage? While everyone else is fighting over bottled water at the supermarket, you're tapping the school's still pressurized plumbing before the grid fully dies. Gravity does more work than people think. Multi-story buildings often hold usable water in their pipes for hours or days after the taps go off. Dark truth. Schools are emotionally loaded. Eventually, other survivors will realize they're good shelters too. Your survival here depends on timing and discretion. You use the campus as an early sanctuary, not your forever castle. Stabilize, cache supplies in non-obvious places, and have a pre-planned exfil path when attention shifts. Action directive. In the next week, map every school and small campus within a 10 to 20-minute off-road walk from your home. Note number of entrances, proximity to major roads, and whether there are sports fields or tree lines for concealed approach. Do it casually, in daylight, like you're just existing, not casing the joint. Now let's talk about stronghold number 2, self-storage facilities. Rows of metal boxes most people only think about when they're moving or hoarding junk. In a collapse, the crowd thinks, loot the units, not live between them. That's their mistake. Self-storage sites are grid-based fortresses by accident. Limited vehicle entry points, tall perimeter fencing, and long, straight sight lines. Most have an office building with power infrastructure, bathrooms, sometimes even small break rooms, and every unit is a pre-made compartment you can turn into supply caches, decoy stashes, or micro-bunkers. Here's the secret. You don't want the visible front row units. You want the forgotten middle row or interior corridor buildings. You set your main sleeping position in a unit that doesn't scream, someone is living here. No flags, no smoke, no constant door activity. Everything that looks interesting should actually be decoy space. For perimeter defense, a storage facility is a dream if you think like a defender, not a looter. Choke points at the gate and corners, long channels for early detection, and metal doors that buy you time even if they don't offer full ballistic protection. Time is what you trade for options. Options are what you trade for survival. But here's the kicker. Other preppers will think of this too. So assume you're not the only one looking at those rows of units like chess pieces. Your edge becomes OPSEC and timing again. You're not the loud guy with a pry bar in the first 48 hours. You're the shadow who arrives after the smash-and-grab crowd burns out, using what's left intelligently. Action directive. Drive past every storage facility within your daily orbit. Note which have multiple access roads, which are packed close to dense housing, and which sit alone near industrial strips. Lone wolves want the isolated ones. Neighborhood guardians might prefer the edge of suburb sites. They double as community cache hubs. Photograph nothing, write nothing obvious. Keep it in your head or coded. Stronghold number 3 is the one almost nobody wants to admit exists. Water treatment plants and pump stations. The second most important resource after air sits behind chain link fences with no trespassing signs, and 99% of evacuees drive right past them in a panic. Let me be clear. You're not trying to live inside the chemical building, and you're not playing chemist with chlorine you don't understand. You're exploiting proximity to controlled water flow and hardened infrastructure. Many facilities have elevated tanks, underground reservoirs, and gravity-fed distribution networks. Water is life, and these systems are the arteries. Technically speaking, a lot of these sites are built stronger than they look. Concrete basins, limited access doors, control rooms in reinforced cores, and perimeter fencing designed to stop casual intrusion. That's what you want in a world where casual intrusion turns into desperate mobs with nothing to lose. Here's how this works for you. You don't set up your sleeping bag next to the pump. You find nearby terrain, tree lines, small outbuildings, maintenance sheds that let you live in the shadow of the facility without being silhouetted against it. You become the ghost that siphons access, not the occupant that paints a target on the structure. Your advantage is simple physics. Elevated tanks and gravity-fed systems keep producing usable flow even as grid power flickers and dies, especially if backup generators kicked in before fuel ran out. While others fight over stagnant puddles and backyard pools, you're accessing safer, higher-volume water. Still filter and treat it, but you're starting from a better place. Dark truth. Critical infrastructure draws authority. If any government response is still functioning, they will care about water plants. That means patrols, repairs, and possibly conflict as they try to secure what you're also eyeing. You never make a treatment plant your hill to die on. It's a resource node, visited, exploited, then left clean and quiet. Action directive. Locate every visible water tower, pump station, and treatment plant inside a 20-mile radius. Mark how many are tucked into neighborhoods versus isolated on back roads. Check which ones have line of sight from hills or tall buildings you can use for recon without walking through the gate like a tourist. Stronghold number 4 is where people's superstition becomes your shield, cemeteries and mausoleum complexes. The same folks who trample each other for Black Friday TVs will suddenly decide a field of stone and bones is too creepy to spend the night in when the lights go out. Great. Let their fear be your perimeter. Let me paint you a picture. City sirens have faded. The first 3 nights of chaos have rolled through the streets, and the living have hysterically clustered in brightly lit shelters. Meanwhile, you're walking along tree lines and stone rows into a space deliberately kept quiet, with maintenance buildings, water taps, and sometimes even small chapels. From a structural standpoint, cemeteries are weirdly practical. High ground is common. Open sightlines between trees and markers, and maintenance sheds full of tools, fuel, and sometimes small machinery. Larger sites may have perimeter fences, locked gates, and only a couple of vehicle access points. That's a defensive dream once you understand choke points. Here's the tactical twist. You don't sleep on open ground like a horror movie extra. Your sanctuary is the overlooked building. Groundskeeper's shed, small office, mausoleum with solid doors and minimal windows. You blend your presence with the existing nothing to see here vibe. No bonfires, no music, no drama. Just quiet, layered concealment. Psychologically, desperate looters look for signs of life. Lights, sound, movement, Vehicles. A cemetery radiates the opposite: stillness, grief, and long-term quiet. Pop quiz. What does a raider see when they pass a graveyard in the dark? Answer: a waste of time. While they're chasing noise in the downtown core, you're cooking a low-profile meal behind stone walls. Dark truth. Not everyone will avoid these spaces. Some will come expressly because they know the fearful majority won't. You counter that with discipline: no visible fires, no obvious tracks, and a willingness to move if someone starts using the place for rituals, campouts, or worse. Cemeteries are sanctuaries, not fortresses. You stay light on your paws here. Action directive. Locate cemeteries within walking range that are not directly on main roads. The best candidates have side entrances, maintenance structures, and natural cover like hedges or tree clusters. Visit once in daylight like a normal person. Note water sources and building types, then leave it alone until you really need it. Stronghold number 5. Cold storage warehouses and food distribution hubs. Everyone fights over grocery store shelves and front doors. Almost nobody remembers that those shelves were filled from the anonymous blocky building near the highway that looked boring and ugly until the trucks stopped. These facilities are built around thermal mass and controlled environments. Thick insulated walls, sealed loading bays, internal corridors with limited windows, and refrigeration systems that, even without power, slow down temperature change. For a while, those rooms keep food safer and more stable than the abandoned supermarket 2 miles away. From a defensive perspective, they're nearly purpose-built strongholds: few doors, high roofs, sturdy concrete floors, and usually one main vehicle entrance. You can control movement with minimal bodies because the architecture does half the job for you. That's built to code and then some, working in your favor. Here's the harsh reality, though. By the time you reach one, it may already have been hit hard. That's fine. You're not here for broken pallets and spilled chicken nuggets. You're here for structure, insulation, and storage potential. You reclaim what's left, scrub biohazard mess, and convert clean rooms into sleeping and stockpile zones. Cold rooms, even without active cooling, are quieter thermally than the outside. In summer, they stay cooler longer. In winter, they buffer the worst of the freeze if you manage airflow right. Temperature swings kill people and supplies. Thermal mass is a passive survival tool baked into these buildings. Dark truth. When word gets out that a warehouse still has food, you're on the clock. That location will attract groups, conflict, and maybe organized forces. So you either secure it hard and accept that you've declared a castle, or you strip what you can, stash caches elsewhere, and treat the building like a temporary operations center. No sentimental attachment. Action directive. Identify all industrial food-related buildings near major logistics routes: warehouses, distribution centers, large walk-in cold storage for restaurants. Use satellite view to see loading docks and truck parking. Your goal isn't to become the warehouse warlord. Your goal is to know which places can, in a pinch, become your insulation-rich sanctuary or quick resupply pit stop. Stronghold number 6, Hilltop telecom and radio sites. You've driven past them 100 times. Fenced towers, squat concrete huts, maybe a little generator building humming away. In normal life, they're invisible. In a collapse, they become king-of-the-hill positions with line of sight that most people don't even consider camping on. The physics here are simple and brutal. Height equals visibility. Visibility equals information. Information equals survival. From a tower hill, you can see approaching threats, smoke columns, and movement patterns long before they hit your doorstep. You turn the world into a board you can read instead of a maze you stumble through. Most of these sites are built like mini bunkers: small footprint, reinforced walls, few windows or none, heavy doors, and fenced perimeters. They're designed to protect sensitive electronics and maintenance crews, which incidentally also protects you from casual intrusion. Add in existing cable conduits and sometimes backup power infrastructure, and you have a tidy little fortress on high ground. Here's how you use it. You don't light a bonfire next to the tower and hang laundry off the fence. You keep your footprint small, your noise down, and your eyes out. Maybe your core shelter is slightly below the crest, tucked into rocks or brush, while the building becomes your observation and storm shelter instead of full-time home. Your advantage compared to ground-level survivors is reaction time. You see trouble early and move before it arrives. You see pattern shifts, traffic thinning, new fires starting, improvised roadblocks appearing. While others react emotionally to whatever hits their street, you operate with a three-dimensional picture and get to choose your fights. Dark truth. Towers are visible from everywhere. Just like castles on hills in medieval times, they broadcast, "This is a position." Eventually, someone else with your brain or worse intentions will think, "We should take that." So a tower is an observational stronghold and temporary sanctuary, not a place you assume you'll die of old age in. You maintain escape routes in multiple directions at all times. Action directive. Mark every high point with visible infrastructure around your area. Towers, water tanks, old fire lookout posts. Hike at least one in good times to learn approaches, dead ground, and sightlines. Time how long it takes you in different conditions. That becomes your mental timer later when you ask, do we have enough time to get eyes on from the hill? Stronghold number 7. Municipal service yards and public works depots. Salt piles, plow trucks, road paint, and all the boring bones of civilization that nobody notices until winter roads don't get plowed. The same people who panic buy snow shovels never think about the fenced yard where the city keeps the real tools. These yards are logistics nodes. Fuel tanks, repair bays, tool cages, spare parts, bulk materials, and usually at least one small office building or crew room. They sit off main roads, but not usually in the densest population centers. In other words, they're critical enough to matter, boring enough to be overlooked in the first panic wave. Structurally, they're built for security against theft and vandalism. Fenced, gated, sometimes with cameras or alarms that won't mean much when the grid is cooked. The buildings themselves are often cinderblock or concrete, with metal doors and minimal windows. Exactly the kind of low-glamour, high-function box you want for a fallback position. Here's how this becomes your sanctuary. You're not trying to run a small government out of it. You're using it as a stronghold to repair, refuel, and regroup. Heavy equipment can block entrances. Salt and sand piles become improvised berms and bullet traps. Tool bays become workshops for improvising defenses and fixing the vehicles that matter. While the unprepared are burning furniture to stay warm, you're in a yard with diesel, hydraulic fluid, spare hoses, and enough hardware to build something more sophisticated than a trash fire. That's a force multiplier. Logistics wins wars. It also wins collapses. Whoever controls repair and resupply points controls momentum. Dark truth. If any organized authority is still trying to function, they will eventually want their trucks, tools, and fuel back. If gangs figure it out first, they'll want them too. You don't just take over a service yard and plant a flag unless you're ready to defend it against both uniforms and tattoos. Treat it as a rotating node in your network, not the throne of your new kingdom. Action directive. Note the locations of county, city, and state service yards around you. Dot yards, parks maintenance, utility depots. Figure out which ones are tucked away enough to be visited discreetly and which ones sit directly in the political spotlight. The former are your potential sanctuaries, the latter are just trouble with a fence. Now, let's zoom out. 7 stronghold types: schools, storage facilities, water infrastructure, cemeteries, cold warehouses, hilltop towers, and service yards. None of them look like the bunker fantasies social media sells you. They look like your town's spine and organs, the parts everyone ignores until they stop working. Your real power isn't picking one and carving your name into the door. It's building a mental network of sanctuaries you can rotate through as conditions change. Vacuum protocol. You move into spaces after chaos has sucked the crowds elsewhere. You occupy quietly, you extract value, and you leave before attention cycles back. This is systems thinking, not fantasy heroism. You're not the star of a movie. You're a node in a broken logistics grid. When you understand that, your question shifts from, where do I run, to, which sanctuary do I use for this phase of the collapse? Early phase, you prioritize concealment and water. Later phases, you prioritize repair hubs and high ground. Uncomfortable truth. None of these make you invincible. Nothing does. A good stronghold just tilts the odds off the default 99% fail rate and buys you more dice rolls. You can still get sick, still get unlucky, still misread human nature, but your survival curve bends sharply upward when you're not camping in the same obvious places as everyone else. So here's your homework. And yeah, I'm assigning homework like a feral guidance counselor. Open a map of your area, digital or paper, doesn't matter, and mark at least one candidate for each of the 7 stronghold types within a realistic travel radius. Not dream locations 3 states away, places you can reach on foot if you have to. Next, physically recon at least 2 of them this month. Daylight only, normal clothes, normal behavior. You're not skulking in a balaclava, you're just passing by. Count entrances, note terrain, look for tree lines, service alleys, or ditches that offer covered approach. Train your eyes to see attack surfaces and escape paths instead of just buildings. Then, build your evacuation decision tree. If main roads are jammed, you go to X. If authorities are sweeping schools, you pivot to Y. If water is failing, your route touches the plant's perimeter for a refill before you ghost to Z. Written down or burned into memory, that branching plan separates chaos reactors from strategic movers. Most people won't do any of this. They'll keep telling themselves that someone will come fix it and that the official shelter is always the safest bet. Maybe they're right, for a day or a week, but systems crack under load and shelters turn into pressure cookers. When that happens, your sanctuaries won't be magical. They'll just be better than the alternative. And that's all survival really is. Better odds than the crowd. You can close this video, shrug, and go back to scrolling, trusting the same people who built this fragile system to somehow keep it from breaking. Or you can accept that nobody is coming to save you in the ways that actually matter, and start mapping, walking, and thinking like a ghost who refuses to be herded. Subscribe if you're part of the 0.1% who act, not just the 1% who think. Drop a comment with which of the 7 stronghold types you can realistically reach first where you live and what you're going to do about it this week. Your move. Class dismissed.